The night I lost everything began with a full moon. Not because it was beautiful, not because it marked the happiest day of my life, but because it became the night my own mate shattered my heart in front of the entire pack. I stood beneath the ancient moon tree, wearing the white ceremonial gown every future Luna dreamed of wearing. Hundreds of wolves surrounded the sacred clearing, cheering as our Alpha approached me. I believed my future was finally beginning. Instead, it was ending. Alpha Kael stopped only a few steps away. His face held no warmth, no excitement, no trace of the man who had once promised that no force on earth would ever separate us. The silence spread across the gathering. Then his cold voice echoed through the clearing. I, Alpha Kael of the Shadow Ridge Pack, reject you as my mate. Every sound disappeared. Even the wind seemed to stop. My heartbeat pounded so loudly that I barely heard the horrified gasps around me. The mate bond burned like fire inside my chest. My knees trembled. No, I whispered. Kael, please. His eyes remained emotionless. You are too weak to stand beside me. Pain shot through every part of my body. The invisible thread connecting our souls began tearing apart. It felt as though someone was ripping my heart from my chest with bare hands. I reached toward him. He stepped back. That single movement hurt more than the rejection itself. Before I could gather another breath, another woman stepped beside him. Celine, my childhood friend, the woman I had trusted with every secret. She wore a victorious smile. Without shame, she slipped her hand into Kael's. The entire pack watched. No one moved. No one defended me. No one even looked into my eyes. Our pack deserves a stronger Luna, Kael announced. And Celine is worthy of standing beside me. Cheers slowly erupted. Not from everyone, but enough. Enough to make my soul crumble. As tears blurred my vision, I noticed something strange. Several elders exchanged worried glances. One old priestess lowered her head as though mourning someone who had already died.
Why?
What did they know? Before I could ask, a sharp pain twisted through my stomach. I pressed my hand against my abdomen. The feeling vanished almost as quickly as it came. I ignored it. At that moment, heartbreak felt far worse. I turned away from the ceremony. Behind me, the celebration continued. Music filled the clearing. Laughter followed. It was as though I had never existed. Little did they know, the moon goddess had already begun writing a different destiny for me. And none of them were ready for what was coming. 3 months earlier, life had seemed almost perfect. Shadow Ridge was one of the strongest packs in the Northern Territories. Its warriors were feared. Its lands were rich. Its alpha was respected by neighboring packs. And I loved him with every piece of my heart. My name is Aria Nightshade. I wasn't born into power. My parents were healers. Simple wolves. Kind wolves. They believed compassion made a pack stronger than fear ever could. They raised me to protect others, to forgive, to remain humble. When my wolf awakened on my 18th birthday, something unusual happened. Instead of appearing immediately, she remained silent. Every other young wolf celebrated hearing their wolf's voice. Mine never came. Days became weeks. Weeks became months. Nothing. The healers insisted every wolf awakened differently. But whispers spread quickly. Wolfless. Cursed. Broken. I pretended not to hear. Kael never seemed to care. Whenever others mocked me, he stood beside me. He promised I would always have him. I don't need your wolf, he once whispered while brushing my hair away from my face. I only need you. Those words became my safe place. Or so I believed. As the years passed, our relationship grew stronger. Or, at least, I thought it had. Then strange things began happening. Kael became distant. Meetings lasted longer. He stopped taking evening walks with me. His smiles became rare. Whenever I asked what was wrong, he blamed alpha duties. I believed him. Love often blinds people to the truth standing right in front of them. Celine, meanwhile, became unusually attentive. She visited me almost every day. She brought flowers, helped me prepare for the mating ceremony, encouraged me whenever I doubted myself. Looking back, her kindness felt rehearsed, like someone memorizing lines before a performance. One afternoon, I found her leaving Kael's office. She startled when she saw me. "Oh." She laughed nervously. "The Alpha asked about decorations." I smiled, never questioning her, never imagining betrayal had already entered my home. Days before the ceremony, Elder Rowan requested a private meeting. He had served Shadow Ridge for over 50 years. He rarely involved himself in personal matters. Yet that afternoon, his expression carried unusual concern. "Aria," he said quietly, "have you noticed anything unusual recently?" I frowned. "What do you mean?" "Dreams." I hesitated. Actually, there had been dreams. The same one. Every night, a silver wolf stood atop a mountain beneath a crimson moon. She never spoke. She simply watched me. Behind her stood a magnificent palace, unlike anything I had ever seen. Each time I tried approaching her, I woke up. When I described the dream, Rowan's face turned pale. "Has anyone else heard this?"
No.
He sighed with relief. "Good." "Why?" Instead of answering, he looked toward the window, as though afraid someone might be listening. "Some truths," he murmured, "must reveal themselves at the proper time." His words left more questions than answers. Before I could press further, someone knocked. Celine entered. Her smile appeared flawless. "Elder Rowan," she said sweetly, "the Alpha is looking for you." The old elder studied her for a long moment. Something unreadable crossed his face. Then he stood. As he passed me, he quietly whispered, "Trust the moon before you trust appearances." I watched him leave. Celine wrapped her arm around mine. "You look nervous," she said. "I guess every bride feels that way." I laughed softly. "I suppose so." She squeezed my hand. For a split second, her smile disappeared. In its place was something colder, something calculating. Then it returned as quickly as it had vanished. Had I imagined it? Maybe. After all, she was my best friend, wasn't she? The final week before the ceremony felt strangely heavy. Even nature seemed restless. Birds abandoned the forest. The wind howled through the trees every night. Several warriors reported seeing enormous wolf tracks beyond the northern border. No ordinary wolf could leave prints that large. Rumors spread that an ancient Lycan had entered nearby territories. Kael dismissed every report. "We have nothing to fear." Yet every evening, he secretly doubled the border patrol. What frightened my fearless Alpha? And why wouldn't he tell anyone? The answer waited beyond the mountains, watching, patiently, as destiny slowly moved every piece into place. The morning of the mating ceremony finally arrived. The entire pack celebrated. Children danced through the village. Music echoed from every corner. Tables overflowed with food. Every house displayed white flowers symbolizing eternal mates. My mother adjusted my ceremonial dress with trembling hands. "You look beautiful." She smiled, but her eyes looked worried. "Mom, what is it?" She touched my cheek. "If anything feels wrong today." She stopped speaking. "Then what?" She forced another smile. "Nothing." Forget I said anything. Why was everyone acting so strangely? Elder Rowan, my mother, the priestess. Even the guards looked unusually tense. What secret surrounded my own mating ceremony? I would soon discover the answer, just not in the way I expected. As I stood before the sacred moon tree waiting for Kael, a sudden wave of dizziness swept over me. My heartbeat accelerated. My stomach twisted again. For a brief moment, I heard a whisper. Not from the crowd. Not from the wind. From inside me. A gentle female voice. "You are not alone," I gasped. The voice disappeared. Before I could process what had happened, Kael stepped into the clearing. And, with one sentence, he destroyed the life I thought I knew. But neither he, nor Celine, realized they had just exiled the woman who carried the future of every werewolf kingdom. And far beyond Shadow Ridge, someone had already sensed the heartbeat of the unborn child. Someone powerful. Someone feared. Someone who had waited decades for this exact moment, who was watching from the shadows. And why did my unborn child matter to them? The cheers continued long after I walked away. Every burst of laughter behind me felt like another knife in my back. No one came after me. Not my friends. Not the women who once called me their future Luna. Not the warriors I had treated after battles. I had spent years caring for this pack. In one night, I became invisible. I barely made it to my small cottage before my legs gave out beneath me. The door slammed shut behind me, shutting out the celebration. Silence filled the room. I stared at the white flowers decorating the table. Earlier that morning, I had placed them there, imagining Kael would carry me through this doorway after the ceremony. Instead, I stood alone. My wedding dress suddenly felt heavy. I ripped the silver ribbon from my waist and threw it across the room. Then another. And another. By the time I stopped, pieces of white fabric covered the floor like fallen snow. A sob escaped my chest. Not a graceful tear. Not quiet sadness. The kind that left my entire body shaking. I slid to the floor and cried until my throat burned. Hours passed. Darkness settled outside. Someone knocked. For one foolish moment, hope rushed through me. Maybe Kael had realized his mistake. Maybe everything had been some terrible misunderstanding. I hurried to the door. When I opened it, Celine stood there. She wore the silver necklace that Kael had once promised to place around my neck after our ceremony. She smiled as though we were old friends sharing pleasant news. I thought you might want these. She held out a wooden box. I frowned. What is it? Your belongings. She pushed the box into my hands. Alpha Kael ordered everything removed from the Alpha house. My fingers tightened around the edges. My belongings? You won't be needing your room anymore. Her words settled slowly. Then another realization struck. You've already moved in. She didn't deny it. I'll be sleeping in the Alpha chamber tonight. For a moment, I couldn't breathe. She glanced around my cottage with fake sympathy. This place suits you better. I shut the door. Before it could close completely, she spoke again. Oh, one more thing. I looked back. The Alpha wants you gone before sunrise. The smile on her face remained. If you're still inside Shadow Ridge after dawn? She paused just long enough. The warriors have permission to drag you beyond the borders. The door closed between us. I leaned against it.
Gone.
Not tomorrow. Not next week. By sunrise. That was all the mercy they intended to show me. I placed the box on the table. Inside lay a few dresses. Some books. A carved wooden wolf Kael had made for me years ago. A faded scarf my mother knitted. Everything else was missing. Every memory. Every promise. Every piece of the life we had built together.
Gone.
I picked up the little wooden wolf. Its nose had chipped after Kael accidentally dropped it while carving. He had laughed, saying imperfections made things beautiful. The memory almost broke me. Without thinking, I threw it into the fireplace. The flames swallowed it within seconds. I'm done believing your lies, I whispered. Outside, footsteps echoed through the village. People were still celebrating. The Alpha had found his Luna. No one mourned the woman he left behind. Before dawn, I packed what little remained. A blanket, fresh clothes, a small pouch of dried herbs, water, my mother's healing kit. Nothing more. There was no room for memories. When I opened the door, icy air rushed against my face. The village looked different. Not because the buildings had changed, because I no longer belonged there. Some wolves watched from their windows. Others whispered behind half-open doors. Children who once ran into my arms now hid behind their parents. No one spoke. No one offered help. I walked through the center of the village with my head held high. If they wanted to watch me leave, they would not see me crawl. As I reached the pack gates, 6 warriors blocked the entrance. Captain Ronan stepped forward. He refused to meet my eyes. You have orders? I asked quietly. He nodded. I do. He handed me a rolled parchment sealed with the Alpha's mark. My hands trembled as I broke the seal. By order of Alpha Kael, Aria Nightshade is permanently exiled from Shadow Ridge. She is forbidden from returning. Any pack offering her shelter will answer to Shadow Ridge. Anyone assisting her will be considered a traitor. The words blurred before my eyes. He hadn't only banished me. He had made sure no neighboring pack would risk helping me. This wasn't exile. It was a death sentence. Captain Ronan lowered his voice. I'm sorry. I folded the parchment. So am I. He stepped aside. The massive gates slowly opened. Beyond them stretched the Blackwood Forest. Every child in the Northern Territories grew up hearing stories about that place. Rogue wolves, wild beasts, ancient creatures. Few entered. Even fewer returned. I crossed the border. The gates slammed shut behind me. The sound echoed through the trees. There was no going back. The forest swallowed the morning light. Tall pines blocked the sky. Branches twisted above like skeletal fingers. Every distant crack made my pulse quicken. Hours passed. My feet ached. My stomach growled. I hadn't eaten since yesterday. Still, I kept moving. Stopping meant freezing. Or becoming prey. Near sunset, I found a narrow stream. I knelt to drink. As I cupped the cold water, another wave of nausea rolled through me. Much stronger this time. I barely reached a nearby bush before vomiting. When it finally stopped, I remained on my knees, breathing hard. Something wasn't right. The strange pain, the dizziness, the exhaustion. It all pointed toward one possibility. One I was too frightened to say aloud. No, I whispered. It can't be. Deep inside, I already knew. By nightfall, rain began pouring through the trees. The temperature dropped quickly. I found shelter beneath an old rock formation. Lightning flashed across the sky. Thunder shook the forest. I wrapped the blanket around myself. Sleep refused to come. Instead, memories did. Kael teaching me how to ride. Kael laughing beside the lake. Kael promising forever. How could the same man become someone I no longer recognized? Had I imagined the love between us? Or had something changed him? The question refused to leave my mind. The next morning, I woke to growling. Low, deep, close. I slowly opened my eyes. 3 rogue wolves stood at the entrance of a shelter. Scarred, thin, hungry. Their yellow eyes never left me. One stepped forward. Another circled behind the rocks. They were hunting together. My heart pounded. Without my wolf, without weapons, I had no chance. The largest rogue bared his teeth. I backed away until my shoulders hit solid stone. There was nowhere left to run. He lunged. Before his jaws reached me, a deafening roar exploded through the forest. Every bird burst into the sky. The ground itself seemed to tremble. The rogues froze. Fear replaced the hunger in their eyes. Another roar followed. Much closer. The 3 wolves tucked their tails and fled without looking back. Silence returned. I remained frozen. Whatever frightened rogue wolves had to be far more dangerous. A heavy footstep echoed beyond the trees. Then another. Someone was coming. Not running. Walking. Slowly. Confidently. As though the entire forest belonged to him. A tall figure emerged between the pines. His dark cloak hid most of his face. Rain dripped from broad shoulders. Even from a distance, I could feel an overwhelming presence pressing against the air. He looked at me, then at the tracks left by the rogues. Finally, his gaze settled on my stomach. His expression changed. Not to surprise. Recognition. As if he had been searching for me all along. Before I could ask who he was, he spoke one sentence that turned my blood cold. I finally found the woman carrying the heir. Who was this stranger? And how did he know about the child I hadn't even confirmed existed? Every instinct told me to run, but my legs refused to move. The stranger stood only a few steps away, calm and unshaken, as rain dripped from the edge of his hood. The forest had gone unnaturally quiet. Even the insects had stopped making noise. His eyes never left mine. "You have the wrong person," I said, forcing confidence into my voice. "I don't know what you're talking about." A faint smile crossed his face. "I expected you to deny it." His voice was deep, steady, and strangely familiar. Not familiar because I knew him. Familiar because hearing it made something inside me settle instead of panic. That frightened me even more. I don't know you.
No.
You don't. He removed his hood. Dark hair framed a face marked by a thin scar across one eyebrow. His features were sharp without looking cruel. His silver eyes were unlike anything I had ever seen. They weren't wolf eyes. They looked older, wiser, as though they had witnessed centuries. My name is Lycan.
He paused.
Commander of the Royal Lycan Guard. The title hit me harder than I expected. Royal? Lycan? Those weren't bedtime stories after all. Growing up, children heard whispers about Lycans. Some believed they ruled beyond the northern mountains. Others insisted they had disappeared generations ago. No one knew the truth. If Lycan was telling the truth, then every story I had ever heard was incomplete. I tightened my grip on the small knife tucked inside my bag. If you're truly a commander, why are you here? To take you somewhere safe. I don't need saving.
No.
His gaze softened. You need protection. There's a difference. Before I could answer, another wave of sickness twisted my stomach. I doubled over, breathing through the pain. Lycan didn't move toward me. He waited, patiently. When the feeling finally eased, he spoke again. You should stop pretending. My head snapped up. Pretending what? That you don't already know. My heart sank. He was right. Since yesterday, I had known. I simply hadn't wanted to say it aloud. I'm pregnant. The words barely escaped my lips. Hearing them made everything real. The rejection, the exile, the future. Tears gathered in my eyes. Not because I regretted the child, because this innocent life had been thrown into chaos before it even began. Lycan nodded as though confirming something he already understood. The moon has protected both of you. I frowned. What does that mean? It means your child survived something that should have been impossible. I don't understand. You will. Not here. Before I could ask another question, his expression hardened. They're coming. Who? The ones who were ordered to make sure you never leave this forest. A chill ran through me. Kael hadn't intended to exile me. He intended to erase me. Branches snapped nearby. Several. Not one direction. 3. We weren't alone. Lycan slowly drew a long sword from his back. Its silver blade reflected the weak sunlight breaking through the clouds. Strange markings glowed along the steel. They're close. I heard footsteps. Voices. Then a familiar laugh. My blood turned cold.
Celine.
She stepped into the clearing wearing dark riding clothes instead of ceremonial robes. 5 armed warriors surrounded her. Captain Ronan walked beside them, his face pale. He looked miserable. Celine, however, looked delighted. There she is. She folded her arms. I was beginning to think the rogues had already finished the job. I stared at her. You followed me? She laughed. Oh, Aria. You really believed exile was enough? Her words landed like stones. I begged Kael to spare you. She shrugged dramatically. But accidents happen in dangerous forests. My stomach twisted again. She never wanted me alive. Not for a single moment. Captain Ronan looked away. He couldn't even watch. Celine pointed directly at me. Kill her. No hesitation. No guilt. Just a simple order. The warriors exchanged uncertain glances. One stepped forward. My lady. She's unarmed. Celine's eyes narrowed. Do I need to remind you whose Luna I am? Silence. The warrior lowered his head, then raised his sword. Lycan calmly stepped between us. You'll have to pass me first. Celine looked him over. And who exactly are you? A traveler.
She smirked.
Then move.
No.
You'll die. I've heard worse threats. The first warrior charged. Everything happened faster than I could follow. A flash of silver. One clean movement. The man's sword flew into the air before he even realized he'd lost it. It landed several feet away. Lycan never struck him. He simply disarmed him. The remaining warriors froze. None of them had seen someone move that quickly. Celine's confidence faltered. Attack. 2 more rushed forward together. Lycan sidestepped the first. Blocked the second. Spun once. Both men crashed into the mud. Neither could stand. Captain Ronan whispered under his breath. Impossible. Lycan hadn't broken a sweat. He lowered his blade. I don't enjoy unnecessary bloodshed. Leave. The warriors looked at one another. Fear slowly replaced loyalty. Selene screamed. Cowards. She grabbed a crossbow from one of them. Before anyone could stop her, she fired. The bolt wasn't aimed at Lycan. It was aimed at me. Everything slowed. I saw the arrow spinning through the air. I couldn't move. Then someone shoved me aside. Lycan. The bolt buried itself deep into his shoulder. He didn't cry out. He simply looked down at the wound, pulled the bolt free, dropped it onto the ground. Selene's face lost all color. The wound was already closing, right before our eyes. The skin sealed itself. The bleeding stopped. Within seconds, nothing remained except a tear in his cloak. One warrior stumbled backward. No. Another whispered. It can't be. Captain Ronan slowly fell to one knee, not because someone ordered him to, because he recognized what stood before him. His voice trembled. A Lycan. The clearing fell silent. Selene looked from Ronan to Lycan, then back again. Confusion filled her face. What are all of you doing? No wolf heals like that. No wolf moves like that. No wolf carries those markings. Lycan looked directly at her. I warned you to leave. She backed away. For the first time since I'd known her, she looked afraid. She climbed onto her horse, so quickly she nearly fell. This isn't over. She glared at me with burning hatred. You'll regret surviving today. She turned and rode into the forest. The remaining warriors followed without another word. Only Captain Ronan hesitated. Before leaving, he looked at me. I'm sorry. His voice cracked. I should have stopped this. Then he disappeared among the trees. The forest became quiet again. I finally looked at Lycan. You saved me. I made a promise. To who? His eyes lifted toward the cloudy sky. Someone who believes your life matters. The answer only deepened the mystery. I stepped closer. You knew they were coming. Yes. You knew I was pregnant. Yes. You knew where to find me. Yes. I searched his face. How? He remained silent for several seconds. Then he reached into his cloak and removed an old silver pendant. The moment I saw it, my breath caught. It was identical to the necklace my mother had hidden since I was a child. The same crescent moon. The same blue crystal. The same ancient markings. Lycan held it in his palm. This belongs to the house of Asterion. I've spent 20 years searching for its missing heir. His gaze met mine. And now, I've found her. If what he said was true, then everything I believed about my past was a lie. I couldn't take my eyes off the pendant. It wasn't merely similar to my mother's. It was identical. The same crescent moon. The same blue stone. The same tiny crack running across one side of the crystal. As a little girl, I used to trace that crack with my finger while my mother brushed my hair before bed. She never let me wear it. She kept it wrapped inside a small velvet cloth and hidden beneath a loose floorboard in our cottage. Whenever I asked where it came from, she always gave the same answer. It belonged to someone who loved you before you were born. Nothing more. Nothing less. Now the man standing before me held its twin. Where did you get that? I asked. Lycan studied my face. I've carried it for 20 years. 20 years. Since the night a kingdom lost its princess. His words made no sense. I am not anyone's princess. So you've been told. I grew up in Shadow Ridge. I know. My parents were healers. They raised you. The sentence struck me like a slap. They raised me? His silence was answer enough. I took a step back. No. You're lying. My parents loved me. I never questioned their love. Then stop speaking in riddles. His expression softened. I'm not questioning the people who cared for you. I'm questioning the story they were forced to tell. Forced. That single word echoed inside my head. My mother had looked frightened on the morning of the mating ceremony. Elder Rowan had warned me to trust the moon. The old priestess had lowered her eyes when Kael rejected me. Had they all known something I didn't? Lucian slipped the pendant back beneath his cloak. This isn't the place. It has to be. I deserve answers. And you'll have them. When you're somewhere no one can silence you. I folded my arms. I'm done following strangers. His gaze drifted toward the trees. You won't be following me. You'll be choosing your future. Before I could reply, a sharp whistle echoed through the forest. Lucian's posture changed instantly. He listened for several seconds. Then he relaxed. They're here.
Who?
My scouts. Moments later, 3 riders emerged between the trees. Unlike ordinary wolves, they carried no pack symbols. Their dark armor bore only a silver crescent over the heart. Each moved with quiet discipline. The woman leading them climbed down first. She bowed her head to Lucian. Commander. Our path is clear. Her eyes shifted toward me. Warmth replaced her serious expression. So, she smiled gently. You really are alive. I frowned. You know me? I've never met you, but I've heard your name since I was a child. That only deepened my confusion. She placed a hand over her heart. My name is Mira. It's an honor. Honor? No one had spoken to me that way before. Not even when I believed I would become Luna. One of the riders unpacked food and a thick wool cloak. Mira handed both to me. You need strength. I can manage. I'm sure you can. She smiled again. But you shouldn't have to. I hadn't realized how hungry I was until the smell of warm bread reached me. My stomach answered before my pride could. Embarrassment washed over me. Mira pretended not to notice. Instead, she sat beside me on a fallen log.
Eat.
I took a cautious bite. It was the first real meal I'd had in days. Before long, I had finished everything they offered. No one stared. No one judged. No one whispered that I was weak. The kindness felt unfamiliar, almost uncomfortable. Lucian crouched beside a patch of disturbed earth. He ran his fingers across fresh hoof prints. They're moving faster than expected. Mira joined him. You think they'll report back? They already have. My chest tightened. Kael knows I survived. Lucian nodded. And he won't ignore it. I looked away. Part of me still hoped Kael would realize what he'd done. That he'd regret sending me into the forest. That he'd search for me because he cared. As if reading my thoughts, Lucian spoke quietly. Hope is dangerous when it's given to the wrong person. I didn't answer, because I knew he was right. Several miles away, Shadow Ridge was celebrating again. Music drifted through the Alpha house. Servants hurried through the halls carrying expensive wine. Celine stood before a mirror wearing the Luna's silver crown. She adjusted it for the 5th time. Still, it didn't feel right. The crown seemed heavier than she expected. Almost uncomfortable. A knock sounded. Enter. Kael walked inside. His face looked exhausted. Dark circles rested beneath his eyes. He hadn't slept. Celine crossed the room. You should be celebrating. I am. You don't look happy. I'm tired. She reached for his hand. He stepped away without thinking. The movement lasted only a second. But she noticed. You've been distant. I've had responsibilities. You mean Aria? His jaw tightened. We agreed not to discuss her. We agreed she'd disappear. I know. Then why do you keep looking toward the gates? Kael didn't answer. Instead, he poured himself another drink. Ever since Aria left, something inside him refused to settle. The mate bond was gone. Yet every night he woke with an unbearable ache in his chest. His wolf had become restless. Silent. Withdrawn. Almost angry. He blamed exhaustion. Nothing else made sense. Another knock interrupted them. Captain Ronan entered. Mud covered his boots. His face had gone pale. Celine immediately recognized the expression. Something had gone wrong. Report, Kael ordered. Ronan hesitated, then spoke. We found her. Kael's grip tightened around the glass. And she wasn't alone. Celine remained perfectly still. There was someone protecting her. Kael frowned. What do you mean? I've never seen anyone fight like that. He defeated 3 of our best warriors without harming them.
Kael scoffed.
Impossible. I thought so too. Ronan swallowed. Until he healed before my eyes. Silence filled the room. Celine's heart skipped. No,
Not them.
Kael slowly lowered his drink. What exactly are you saying? I believe. Ronan struggled to finish. He was a Lycan. The glass slipped from Kael's hand. It shattered across the floor. Back in the forest, we continued north. The trees gradually thinned. Snow appeared along the ground even though it wasn't winter. Cold mist rolled between the rocks. Everything felt different. Older. As though we had crossed into land untouched by ordinary packs. My legs were growing tired. Lucian noticed before I said anything. We'll stop soon. I'm fine.
No. He looked at me.
You're trying to prove something. I don't want to slow everyone down. You won't. He pointed ahead. We've arrived. I followed his gaze. At first, I saw only cliffs. Then the fog shifted. Hidden within the mountains stood enormous stone gates. Ancient towers rose into the sky. Silver banners moved gently in the wind. The walls stretched farther than I could see. It wasn't a village. It wasn't a pack. It was an entire city. My breath caught. This place. Lucian smiled for the first time. Welcome home. I stared at him. Home? How could a place I'd never seen before feel strangely familiar? Before anyone could explain, the massive gates began to open on their own, and thousands of voices echoed from inside. Not shouting, not cheering, calling a single name, a name I had never heard before. My Lady Asterion. Who was Lady Asterion?
And why were they looking at me?
The gates opened slowly, not with the harsh groan of old wood, with the deep rumble of solid stone. Dust drifted into the air as sunlight poured through the widening entrance. I stood frozen. Beyond the walls stretched a city unlike anything I had imagined. Wide streets paved with polished gray stone curved between towering buildings. Silver banners fluttered from balconies. Crystal fountains sparkled beneath the afternoon sun. Gardens overflowed with white roses. Children laughed as they chased one another through open courtyards. Nothing looked abandoned. Nothing looked forgotten. This place was alive. Yet every person inside had stopped moving. Hundreds of faces turned toward me. A woman carrying a basket of fruit lowered it to the ground. A blacksmith placed his hammer aside. Merchants stepped away from their stalls. Even the guards standing atop the walls removed their helmets. No one spoke. Then, almost at once, they bowed. Not out of fear, out of respect. I instinctively stepped backward. What are they doing? Lucian answered quietly. They've been waiting. For me? For the last surviving member of the royal bloodline. I shook my head.
No.
You've made a mistake. I haven't. I don't belong here. You were born here. His words hit harder than anything Kael had ever said. I was born in Shadow Ridge. No. You were taken there. Everything around me seemed to blur. My breathing became uneven. This couldn't be happening. It was impossible. I looked toward Mira. She lowered her eyes. She wasn't denying it. That frightened me even more. An elderly man in flowing white robes slowly approached. His long silver hair rested against his shoulders. Though age had bent his back slightly, his eyes remained sharp. He stopped a few feet away. Then he knelt. The entire square followed. My lady. His voice trembled with emotion. Welcome home. I stared at him. You don't even know me. A faint smile touched his lips. I knew your mother. The world seemed to stop. My mother? He nodded. The woman who gave birth to you. I swallowed hard. My mother is alive. The healer who raised me. I know. And she loved you. He placed a hand over his heart. But she wasn't the one who carried you into this world. A lump formed in my throat. Every answer only created 10 more questions. I don't understand. You will. His eyes became clouded with sadness. I only wish your parents had lived long enough to tell you themselves. Parents. Not parent. The word echoed inside my mind. You're saying my birth parents are dead? No one answered. No one needed to. Their silence said everything. My knees weakened. Mira quickly caught my arm before I fell.
Easy.
I've got you. For years, I had believed I knew exactly who I was. In a single afternoon, everything had been erased. Lycan led me through the city. People didn't crowd around us. They simply watched. Some smiled. Others cried openly. One elderly woman reached into her pocket and kissed a tiny silver pendant before placing it against her forehead. A little boy tugged on his father's sleeve. Is she really the princess? His father gently nodded. She came back. The child grinned. I told you she wasn't gone forever. His words caught me off guard. How could children believe in someone they had never met? We finally stopped before an enormous palace built into the mountainside. Tall white pillars framed the entrance. Blue crystal windows reflected the sky. The place felt grand without feeling cold. Lycan pushed open the massive doors. Inside, warmth replaced the mountain air. Large fireplaces burned along the walls. Ancient paintings filled the hallways. My eyes landed on one portrait. A beautiful woman wearing a silver crown smiled from the canvas. Dark hair, gray eyes, a small crescent-shaped birthmark beneath her left ear. I couldn't breathe. Without thinking, I touched the same spot beneath my own ear. Hidden beneath my hair, the identical mark rested against my skin. I had always believed it was an ordinary birthmark. Lycan noticed. So you see it. I slowly walked closer to the painting. Who is she? He answered with quiet respect. Queen Aria. The name felt strangely familiar. As a child, I whispered. I used to dream about someone who looked like her. Lycan closed his eyes briefly. The moon never stopped trying to reach you. I stared at the painting. The woman looked as though she might step out of the frame at any moment. She wasn't a stranger. There was something comforting about her smile. Something painfully familiar. My mother? Lycan nodded. Tears filled my eyes before I realized they were falling. I had spent years wondering why I never resembled the people who raised me.
Now,
the answer stood before me. I wasn't imagining the difference. I had belonged somewhere else all along. That evening, I sat alone on a balcony, overlooking the city. The sun slowly disappeared behind snow-covered peaks. Everything had changed too quickly. I needed time to breathe, to think, to understand. Soft footsteps approached. Mira handed me a cup of warm herbal tea. My grandmother always said this helps settle the heart. I accepted it with a small smile. Thank you. She leaned against the stone railing. I know today has been overwhelming. That's one way to describe it. She laughed quietly. The first day usually is. I looked at her. You've known about me your whole life. Yes. Why? Because everyone here has. I frowned. I don't understand. She took a slow breath. When you disappeared as a baby, the kingdom never stopped searching. We searched every neighboring land, every pack, every village. For years. What happened? Mira looked toward the mountains. Someone betrayed the royal family. On the night you were born, my stomach tightened. Betrayed them how? They opened the palace gates. To our enemies. The image formed inside my mind before she finished speaking.
fire, blood,
Chaos. My parents. They protected you. They made sure you escaped. Did they survive? Myra's silence answered me once again. A tear slipped down my cheek. I had lost people I never even knew. Yet somehow, their sacrifice had carried me all the way here. I wish I could remember them. You remember more than you realize. She smiled gently. Those dreams you've had? I looked up sharply. How do you know about them? Lycan appeared in the doorway. Because your mother had them too. He walked onto the balcony carrying an old wooden chest. Its silver lock had faded with age. He placed it carefully on the table between us. This belonged to Queen Aria. My heartbeat quickened. It was meant for you. He unlocked it. Inside rested tiny baby clothes. A silver rattle. Several letters tied together with blue ribbon. And one small blanket embroidered with a crescent moon. Folded beneath everything else was a worn journal. Lycan carefully lifted it out. Your mother wrote in this during her pregnancy. My hands trembled. She wrote to me? Every week. I reached toward the journal. Before my fingers could touch the cover, a sudden pain shot through my stomach, much stronger than before. I gasped. The teacup slipped from my hands and shattered across the floor. Mira immediately knelt beside me. Aria. Another sharp pain followed. Then another. Lycan placed 2 fingers lightly against my wrist. His calm expression disappeared. This isn't ordinary. What is it? Mira asked. He looked directly into my eyes. The baby. It's responding to something. The wind suddenly grew violent. The palace windows rattled. Far below, every wolf in the city lifted its head toward the sky. Then, one after another, they began to howl. Not in fear, in recognition. At that exact moment, a brilliant silver light spread beneath my hands. It glowed through the fabric covering my stomach. Everyone on the balcony stared in stunned silence. Lycan whispered words I never expected to hear. The heir has awakened. What did that mean? And why had the child inside me suddenly revealed a power no one could explain? The silver light disappeared as quickly as it had appeared. Silence settled over the balcony. My hands were still pressed against my stomach. My breathing was uneven. I looked at Lycan, then at Mira. Neither of them spoke. They looked as stunned as I felt. Finally, I found my voice. What just happened? Lycan exhaled slowly. I hope we had more time. Time for what? He glanced toward the darkening sky. To prepare you. I don't need another mystery. I need the truth. His eyes met mine. And you'll have it. No more waiting. No more half answers. You owe me that much. He nodded. You're right. He pulled out a chair and motioned for me to sit. Mira remained beside me. The old journal still rested on the table between us. Untouched. Lycan folded his hands. Long before the Pax divided these lands, the Lycans ruled together. There were no borders. No rival alphas. No endless wars. The kingdoms answered to one royal family. I listened without interrupting. That peace lasted for generations. Until ambition destroyed it. A group of powerful rulers wanted the throne for themselves. They believed strength should decide who ruled, not blood. They started a war. A war that lasted nearly 15 years. The royal family won every battle, but they couldn't stop betrayal. His voice grew quieter. The enemy discovered that Queen Aria was expecting a child. My mother. Yes. They believed the unborn heir would unite the kingdoms forever. So they planned to end the royal bloodline before that could happen. A cold feeling spread through my chest. They attacked the palace. Lycan nodded. On the night you were born. They came from every direction. Someone inside opened the gates. The battle lasted until sunrise. Thousands died. My parents, they fought until the very end. My eyes filled with tears. They never surrendered. They only cared about getting you to safety. I lowered my head. For years I had wondered why life had always felt slightly out of place. Why I never truly fit in. Now I knew. My real family had given everything, so I could live. Lycan carefully slid the journal closer to me. Your mother believed one day you would return. I placed my hand on its worn cover. The leather felt soft from years of use. For a long moment, I couldn't bring myself to open it. What if? My voice cracked. What if I don't recognize her? Mira smiled gently. You will. With trembling fingers, I untied the faded ribbon. The first page opened slowly. Elegant handwriting filled the paper. At the top, one sentence caught my eye. To my precious daughter. If you're reading this, then destiny has finally brought you home. A sob escaped before I could stop it. I continued reading. Today I felt your tiny heartbeat for the first time. Your father smiled like a little boy when I told him. He insists you'll inherit my stubbornness instead of his patience. I secretly hope he's right. I laughed through my tears. Whoever my father had been, he sounded nothing like the ruthless leaders I had imagined. I turned another page. The entries continued. Some described ordinary days. Others spoke about decorating a nursery. One page held a pressed white flower. Another contained a tiny drawing of the palace garden. Every word made Queen Alara feel less like a queen, more like a mother, someone who had loved a daughter she barely had the chance to hold. Then I reached the final completed page. The handwriting had become rushed, uneven. If this letter reaches you, something has gone terribly wrong. Your father and I may not survive what is coming, but never believe you were abandoned. Every choice we make tonight is for you.
Life. Love.
Trust your heart before your fear. And if the moon is kind, one day you will stand where we could not. Rule with mercy, not anger.
Forgive when you can.
Fight when you must. And remember, no crown is heavier than the lives depending on it. I couldn't read another word. The journal slipped from my hands. Mira wrapped her arms around me without saying anything. For several minutes, I simply cried. Not because I felt weak, because grief had finally found a place to land. The following morning, sunlight spilled across the palace gardens. For the first time since leaving Shadow Ridge, I woke without fear. No shouting, no whispers, no one judging me, only birds singing outside the open window. A young servant knocked gently. "My lady," I wasn't used to hearing those words. "You may come in." She entered carrying breakfast. Fresh bread, honey, fruit, warm milk. She carefully arranged everything on the table, then bowed. "If you need anything." "I'm Lila." I smiled. "Thank you, Lila."
She looked surprised.
"You remembered my name." "Of course." A smile spread across her face before she hurried out. I realized something then. Respect given freely felt completely different from respect demanded by fear. Later that morning, Lycan met me in the palace courtyard. "There's someone who wishes to see you." "Who?" "He insisted on waiting until you were ready." We walked through several corridors before reaching a quiet library. Thousands of books lined the shelves from floor to ceiling. Near the fireplace sat an elderly man wearing simple gray robes. Unlike everyone else, he didn't bow when I entered. He simply smiled. "So, you finally made it." Lycan inclined his head respectfully. "Master Orion." The old man chuckled. "You've grown slower with age." Lycan actually smiled. "I've been told that before." Master Orion turned toward me. His eyes lingered on my face. Then they widened ever so slightly. "You have her eyes. My mother's, and your father's determination."
He motioned for me to sit.
I knew them both. Hope stirred inside me. "You knew my father?" "Very well." "What was he like?" The old man laughed softly. "He could defeat 10 warriors before breakfast, but he'd lose every argument with your mother." Despite everything, I smiled. For the first time, my parents felt real, not legends.
People.
Master Orion reached into a drawer and removed a folded map. He spread it across the table. "This kingdom isn't your only concern anymore." I looked closer. The map showed far more than the city. Dozens of werewolf packs covered the northern lands. Several Lycan territories stretched beyond the mountains. One area had been marked in dark red ink. "What happened there?" His expression became serious. "Those lands belonged to a man named Darius." The name meant nothing to me. He was once your father's closest friend. My stomach tightened. "And now?"
"Now."
Master Orion looked directly into my eyes. "He's the reason your parents are dead." The room fell silent. Lycan's jaw tightened. Even Mira, who had entered quietly moments earlier, lowered her gaze. I stared at the red mark on the map. The man responsible for destroying my family was still alive. Before I could ask another question, a palace guard burst through the library doors. Breathing hard, he dropped to one knee. "Commander." Lycan stood immediately. "What happened?" The guard swallowed. "Our eastern watchtower has spotted an army." "What banner?" The young guard hesitated, then answered. "Shadow Ridge." My heart stopped. Kael had found me. But why would he bring an army to a kingdom he knew nothing about? And what did he truly want me? Or the child growing inside me? The library fell silent. No one moved. No one even breathed. The guard remained on one knee, waiting for orders. Lycan walked to the window, overlooking the city. From there, The eastern mountains stretched toward the distant forests where Shadow Ridge lay hidden. They came sooner than expected, he said quietly. Master Orion folded the map. I warned you they wouldn't let this end. Lucian nodded once. They know she's alive. I stepped forward.
No.
They can't. Kael doesn't know where I am. Lucian turned to face me. He doesn't need to. What do you mean? He only needs someone who does. His words made my stomach tighten.
A spy.
Someone had been watching us. Someone had followed our trail. Master Orion looked toward the guard. How many? Nearly 300 warriors. And their formation? They're moving carefully. They've stopped outside the eastern valley. Lucian frowned. They're waiting. For what? I asked. For permission. The answer confused me. Permission from who? Lucian didn't reply. Instead, he walked out of the library. We're going to the watchtower. The climb to the eastern wall took several minutes. The higher we walked, the colder the air became. When we reached the top, I understood why everyone had gathered there. The valley below stretched for miles. At its entrance stood hundreds of warriors wearing the black and silver colors of Shadow Ridge. Their banners swayed in the mountain wind. Horses stamped impatiently against the rocky ground. Spears caught the sunlight. The army looked prepared for battle. At the very front sat Kael. Even from that distance, I recognized the way he carried himself. Straight-backed. Proud. Unmoving. Seeing him again stirred emotions I thought were gone. Anger.
Pain.
Disappointment. Not love. That surprised me most. I searched my heart for the warmth I once felt whenever I looked at him. It wasn't there. Only memories remained. Lucian watched me carefully. What are you feeling? I answered honestly. I thought seeing him again would break me. It didn't. He nodded. Good. Below us, another rider approached Kael's horse. Even from the wall, I recognized the woman's long blonde hair. Celine. She pointed toward the mountains while speaking quickly. Kael listened without taking his eyes off the city. Mira narrowed her gaze. She's impatient. Master Orion joined us moments later. He carried a brass telescope. After studying the army for several seconds, he handed it to me. Look closely. I raised it to my eye. The world suddenly became clear. I could see Kael's face. His expression wasn't proud. It was tired. His beard had grown longer than usual. Dark circles rested beneath his eyes. He looked as though he hadn't slept in days. Celine stood beside him, speaking with animated gestures. Kael barely responded. Then something unexpected happened. He reached into his pocket, pulled out a small object, and stared at it. Curiosity got the better of me. I adjusted the telescope. My breath caught. It was the little wooden wolf, the one I had thrown into the fireplace. No, it couldn't be. I had watched it burn. Hadn't I? I lowered the telescope. I don't understand. Lucian studied my expression. What did you see? He is something that should have been destroyed. Master Orion's voice remained calm. Sometimes people cling hardest to what they've already lost. Far below, inside the Shadow Ridge camp, Kael closed his hand around the tiny carved wolf. Its edges were blackened by fire. One ear had been chipped years ago while he carved it. He remembered Aria laughing at him for ruining the shape. She had kissed his cheek anyway. The memory stung. Alpha. He looked up. Captain Ronan stood nearby. The scouts have returned. Kael slipped the carving back into his pocket. What did they find? The city is heavily guarded. We've never seen walls like these. No weak points. None. Kael looked toward the towering gates. This isn't a werewolf settlement.
No.
It isn't. Ronan hesitated. Should we really be here? Kael answered without looking at him. I need to see her. Behind them, Celine approached. You don't need to see her. You need to finish what should have been finished days ago. Kael's eyes hardened. I told you never to say that again. She forced a smile. I only meant. I know exactly what you meant. For a brief second, genuine fear crossed her face. She quickly changed her tone. If she's inside those walls, they're hiding something. Kael remained silent. Deep inside, questions had begun eating away at him. Why had a Lycan risked his life for Aria? Why had she been taken there? Who was she really? Nothing made sense anymore. Back inside the city, the palace council gathered in the war chamber. A giant map covered the center table. Wooden markers represented different armies. Generals filled the room. Some argued for attacking immediately. Others wanted the gates sealed. Voices overlapped. Their numbers are too small. They could be a distraction. What if more troops are following? Lycan raised one hand. The room instantly quieted. They won't attack today. One general frowned. How can you be sure? They're waiting for negotiations. Master Orion agreed. They don't know who they're facing. Mira looked toward me. They came for you. Every face in the room turned. An uncomfortable silence followed. Finally, one elderly woman stood. Her white uniform marked her as the high healer. She bowed slightly. My lady, the decision should be yours. I blinked. Mine. Lycan nodded. You're the one they're seeking. I've never led anyone. You don't have to know everything today. But your voice matters. The weight of those words settled over me. Only a week ago, I had no home, no future. Now experienced commanders waited for my opinion. I took a slow breath. What happens if we refuse to meet them? They remain outside. They may eventually attack. And if we invite them inside? Master Orion answered. We risk exposing you. I looked around the room. No one tried to influence me. No one pressured me. They simply waited. I thought about Kael, the man who had once promised forever, the man who had thrown me away without listening, the man now standing outside these walls. Finally, I spoke. I'll meet him. Several people exchanged surprised looks. Lycan didn't interrupt, but not alone. I continued, and not as the woman he exiled. I straightened my shoulders. I'll meet him as the person I've become. A faint smile appeared on Master Orion's face. Your mother would have said the same thing. That evening, preparations began. Not for war. For a meeting. The great audience hall was cleaned. Royal banners were raised. Guards took their positions. Every detail reflected the dignity of the kingdom. Lila entered my room carrying several elegant gowns.
Blue, silver, white,
Gold. I wasn't sure which one you'd prefer. I stared at them. I've never worn clothes like these. She smiled. Then today seems like the perfect day to start. She held up a flowing silver dress embroidered with tiny moonflowers. It's beautiful. It belonged to Queen Aria. I hesitated. I don't know if I'm worthy. Lila gently placed the dress into my hands. You don't have to earn being her daughter. Those simple words touched something deep inside me. For so many years, I believed love had to be earned. Approval had to be earned. Acceptance had to be earned.
maybe.
They never should have been. As Lila finished arranging my hair, a soft knock came at the door. Lycan stepped inside. He looked unusually serious. What is it? He closed the door behind him. Our scouts intercepted a messenger. From Shadow Ridge? Yes. He handed me a folded letter. It's addressed to you. My fingers trembled as I broke the seal. The handwriting was unmistakable.
Kael.
The first line stole the air from my lungs. Aria, I know the truth now. I kept reading. Everything I believed was a lie. Please, let me explain before it's too late. I stared at the page. Too late? What truth had Kael finally discovered? And why did he suddenly sound like a man who feared losing everything? Morning arrived beneath a sky covered in pale gray clouds. A cold breeze swept across the palace balconies, carrying the scent of pine and snow. I hadn't slept. Kael's letter remained folded on the table beside my bed. I had read it more times than I cared to admit. Each time, the words felt different. I know the truth now. What truth? Why had it taken losing everything for him to begin asking questions? A soft knock interrupted my thoughts. My lady, Lila called from outside. The council is waiting. I'll be there shortly. I slipped the letter into my pocket before leaving the room. The palace corridors buzzed with quiet preparation. Guards stood at every entrance, servants moved swiftly between halls, and messengers hurried toward the eastern towers. Everyone knew today would decide whether peace still had a chance. When I entered the council chamber, every conversation stopped. Lycan stood beside the large map. Master Orion rested both hands on his cane. Mira offered me a reassuring smile. Lycan stepped forward. Our scouts have returned. What did they find? I asked. They confirmed that Alpha Kael requested this meeting himself. No siege equipment. No attack formation. No hidden troops. He came to speak. Master Orion looked unconvinced. Or to distract us. Lycan nodded. That's possible. Another commander folded his arms. If this is a trap, we end it before it begins. Silence followed. Then every eye turned toward me. I took a slow breath. I'll meet him. Several commanders shifted uneasily. Lycan remained calm. You understand the risks. I do. I also need answers. Master Orion studied me carefully. Then the meeting will take place outside the eastern gate. No army. No weapons drawn. No one crosses the boundary without permission. Everyone agreed. Lycan looked toward me. If you sense danger, we leave immediately. I nodded. I understand. An hour later, the eastern gates opened. Not completely. Just enough for a small group to step outside. Lycan walked on my right. Mira remained on my left. Behind us stood 20 royal guards. Their silver armor reflected the morning light. Across the valley, Kael approached with Captain Ronan. Celine followed several steps behind despite clearly being told not to. Neither side spoke until only a few yards separated us. Time seemed to stop. Kael looked exactly as I remembered, yet completely different. The proud certainty that once defined him had vanished. His shoulders looked heavier. His eyes carried regret I had never seen before. For several long moments, neither of us spoke. Finally, he whispered my name, Aria. Hearing it no longer stirred warmth inside me. Only memories. I received your letter, I said. I'm grateful you agreed to meet me. I came for answers. So did I. Lycan glanced between us, but remained silent. Kael looked directly into my eyes. I was wrong. The words surprised everyone. Even Celine looked shocked. I should have trusted you. You should have. I know. His voice broke slightly. I don't expect forgiveness. Then why are you here? He reached inside his coat. Several guards immediately tensed. Slowly, he removed a folded piece of parchment. I found this hidden inside my father's study. He handed it to Captain Ronan, who carefully carried it toward Lycan. Lycan inspected the seal before passing it to me. The wax bore the crest of Shadow Ridge. The handwriting wasn't Kael's. It belonged to someone older. I unfolded the letter. The first sentence made my heart skip. If Aria Nightshade ever becomes Luna, the prophecy will begin. Remove her before the next blood moon. I stared at the page. What is this? Kael answered quietly. My father's orders. I looked up. He wrote this. Years ago. I found it 3 nights after you left. My hands tightened around the parchment. There were dozens of letters. All hidden. They mentioned your name repeatedly. They warned that you could never become Luna.
Why?
I didn't know. I still don't. Master Orion stepped forward. May I? I handed him the letter. His expression darkened almost immediately. This seal. He whispered. I've seen it before. Lycan looked at him. You recognize it? Master Orion nodded slowly. Not the handwriting. The symbol pressed into the corner. Everyone leaned closer. There, barely visible beneath the wax, rested another mark. A black serpent coiled around a crown. Master Orion's face turned pale. Darius. The name spread through the group like icy wind. Kael frowned. You know him? Lycan answered before anyone else could. He murdered Aria's parents. Kael looked at me, then back at Lycan. What? No one spoke. Master Orion held up the letter. This wasn't written only by your father. He received instructions. From Darius. Kael stepped backward as though struck. No. My father would never. Lycan's voice remained firm. Your father served him. Captain Ronan slowly lowered his head. I remember. Everyone turned toward him. He swallowed hard. When I was a young recruit, I once saw Alpha Magnus meeting a cloaked visitor in secret. He ordered everyone away. I never saw the man's face. But what?
Kael asked.
He wore a ring. A black serpent wrapped around a crown. Silence settled across the valley. Kael looked completely lost. My father told me Aria's family was dangerous. He said she carried a curse. He said marrying her would destroy Shadow Ridge. His voice shook. I believed him. I stared at the man I once loved. So, instead of asking me, you humiliated me. You cast me out. You left me to die. Every word landed heavily. Kael couldn't deny any of it. I know. I deserve your anger.
No.
You deserve the truth. I stepped closer. When I begged you to listen, you wouldn't even look at me. His eyes filled with regret. I thought I was protecting my people. You weren't. You were protecting a lie. Before Kael could answer, Celine suddenly stepped forward. Enough. Everyone looked at her. She forced out a nervous laugh. This changes nothing. It changes everything, Kael replied.
No.
She grabbed his arm. She's manipulating you. I've seen the letters. They're fake. Lucien's eyes narrowed. Interesting. Celine froze. You knew they existed before today. She quickly released Kael's arm. You just called them fake. Lucien continued. Without even reading them, no one spoke. Celine's face drained of color. Master Orion looked at her carefully. How did you know what was inside the hidden study? Kael slowly turned toward her. I never told you where I found them. She opened her mouth. Nothing came out. Captain Ronan frowned. Neither did I. The silence became unbearable. Kael stared at the woman beside him. Celine, what aren't you telling me? She backed away one step. You don't understand. I understand enough. His voice hardened. Were you involved?
No.
Look at me. I said no. Her breathing became uneven. Lucien quietly rested a hand on the hilt of his sword. Myra's eyes scanned the surrounding hills. Something felt wrong. Very wrong. Then, a single arrow whistled through the air. It wasn't aimed at me. It wasn't aimed at Kael. It struck Celine's shoulder. She screamed and collapsed to the ground. Chaos erupted. Royal guards raised their shields. Shadow Ridge warriors drew their swords. Lucien looked toward the cliffs above the valley. His expression changed instantly. They're here. Dark figures emerged along the ridge. Dozens. Then hundreds. Each carried black banners marked with a serpent wrapped around a crown. Master Orion whispered the name everyone feared. Darius. Kael looked from the banners to the wounded Celine, then back to me. His face went completely white. We've all been played. The real war had only just begun. The valley erupted into confusion. Warriors from Shadow Ridge rushed toward their alpha. Royal guards immediately formed a protective circle around me. Above us, the black banners spread across the cliffs like a storm swallowing the mountains. There were far more soldiers than anyone expected. They stood shoulder to shoulder along the ridges, their armor dark as charcoal, their faces hidden behind iron masks. Not one of them spoke. Lucien's eyes swept across the cliffs. They've trapped us. Master Orion tightened his grip on his staff. They waited until both sides gathered. Kael looked around in disbelief. This wasn't supposed to happen. Lucien turned sharply. It was always supposed to happen. One deep horn echoed across the valley. Then another. The enemy ranks slowly parted. A black horse stepped forward. Its rider wore a long crimson cloak over polished armor. Silver streaks ran through his dark hair, but his face showed almost no sign of age. His eyes were cold, patient, calculating. He guided his horse to the edge of the cliff and looked down at us as though examining pieces on a game board. No one needed to introduce him. Master Orion whispered the name under his breath. Darius. A faint smile appeared on the stranger's face. So, after all these years, I finally meet Queen Alara's daughter. My heart pounded. He wasn't shouting.
He didn't need to.
Every word carried across the valley. I've imagined this moment for a very long time. Lycan stepped in front of me. You'll go no farther. Darius chuckled. You've always been loyal. His gaze shifted toward Lycan, still protecting children who can't protect themselves. Lycan's voice remained calm. I protect those worth protecting. And yet, Darius leaned forward slightly. You couldn't save their parents. The insult hung heavily in the air. Lycan didn't react, but I noticed his hand tighten around the hilt of his sword. Darius slowly looked toward Kael. And you, the proud alpha. Kael met his gaze, without lowering his head. Do I know you? You knew your father. I asked if I knew you. The older man smiled again.
No.
But your father served me faithfully. Kael's face hardened. You're lying. Am I? Darius raised one hand. A soldier walked forward carrying an old wooden chest. He opened it. Inside rested dozens of sealed letters. Every one carried the crest of Shadow Ridge. Captain Ronan stared in disbelief. I remember those seals. Darius laughed softly. Of course you do. I sent them. Kael slowly shook his head. My father would never betray our pack.
No.
He believed he was saving it. Just as you believed you were saving it by rejecting Aria. Those words hit Kael harder than any weapon. His shoulders dropped. Every decision he had made suddenly looked different. Every lie connected to another. I stepped forward before Lycan could stop me. You murdered my parents. Darius looked directly at me. I removed obstacles. They were innocent. They stood between me and a kingdom. There wasn't a trace of regret in his voice. Only certainty. I felt anger rising inside me. Not the helpless anger I had known after Kael rejected me. Something deeper, stronger. The child inside me stirred. A warm pulse spread through my body. Darius noticed immediately. There it is. His smile widened. I was beginning to wonder whether the heir had awakened. Lycan drew his sword. You won't touch them. I don't intend to. The answer caught everyone off guard. I only need the child. Every warrior around me stiffened. Mira instinctively stepped closer. What are you talking about? I demanded. Darius slowly removed a small silver object from his pocket. It was an ancient medallion engraved with symbols I couldn't read. The child carries more than royal blood. Master Orion's expression changed. No. You cannot be serious. Oh, I am. He held up the medallion. Long before your kingdoms existed, a gift was entrusted to the royal bloodline. The first child born after the return of the lost heir would awaken it. Lycan's face darkened. You promised never to seek it again. I promise nothing. Darius looked at me. Your child is the final key. What key? He smiled. You'll discover that soon enough. Without warning, he snapped his fingers. The mountains exploded with movement. Hundreds of enemy soldiers charged downhill. Protect the princess. Lycan shouted. Steel clashed. Arrows darkened the sky. The peaceful valley disappeared beneath smoke and dust. Lycan met the first attackers head-on. His blade flashed like lightning. Enemy soldiers fell back before they could reach him. Mira pulled me toward the palace road. We have to move. I won't leave everyone. You staying helps no one. Another arrow struck the ground inches from my feet. Royal guards raised their shields above us. Kael drew his sword. For one brief moment, our eyes met across the battlefield. Neither of us spoke. Then 3 enemy warriors rushed toward me. Before Lycan could reach them, Kael intercepted them. His sword moved with desperate precision. One attacker fell. Another stumbled backward. The third tried to slip past him. Kael blocked the strike with his own body. The blade sliced across his shoulder. He ignored the pain. Run, he shouted toward me. It was the first time he had chosen my safety over his pride. I hesitated. Lycan grabbed my arm.
Now.
We retreated toward the palace gates while the battle intensified behind us. The sound of metal echoed through the valley. Smoke drifted between the rocks. War cries filled the air. Then, a scream cut through everything. Celine. She was crawling across the ground, blood staining her sleeve. One of Darius's soldiers had seized her by the hair. "Please, I helped you." The soldier looked confused. "What are you talking about?" "I delivered the letters. I kept Aria away from the truth. I did everything Lord Darius asked." The entire battlefield seemed to freeze. Kael stopped fighting. He turned slowly toward Selene. His face emptied of all expression. "You?" Selene's eyes widened. She hadn't realized he could hear her. "I can explain. You worked for him? It wasn't supposed to happen like this. You told me Aria was dangerous. You forged reports. You convinced me she was hiding things." Tears streamed down Selene's face. "He promised I'd become Luna. He promised we'd rule Shadow Ridge." Kael looked as though the ground had disappeared beneath him. Every memory suddenly made sense. Every coincidence. Every whisper. Every doubt she had planted. It had all been planned. Darius watched with amusement. Truth has terrible timing. Selene desperately looked toward him. "You said you'd protect me." He didn't even acknowledge her. Instead, he spoke to one of his captains. "She's no longer useful." The captain raised his sword. Selene screamed. Before the blow could fall, Kael rushed forward. He knocked the captain aside and pulled Selene behind him. She stared at him in disbelief.
Why?
His answer came quietly. "Because I refuse to become the man you turned me into." He looked toward me. Pain filled his eyes. "I've already failed one innocent person." The battle raged around us. But something had changed. Kael was no longer fighting for pride. He was fighting to correct the worst mistake of his life. High above the battlefield, Darius finally lost his smile. He looked directly at me, then lifted his right hand. Dark clouds gathered over the mountains. The wind howled through the valley. Master Orion's face turned pale. "No."
He wouldn't.
Lycan followed Darius's gaze. His voice became urgent. "Get Aria inside the palace."
Why?
Mira shouted. Lycan didn't answer immediately. His eyes remained fixed on the sky. When he finally spoke, every word carried unmistakable fear. "He's about to awaken the blood moon. And if Darius succeeded, the child growing inside me would become the most hunted life in every kingdom." A violent gust swept across the valley. The clouds above twisted into a dark spiral. Daylight faded as though night had arrived hours too early. Every wolf on the battlefield stopped for a heartbeat.
They all looked toward the sky.
Master Orion's voice barely rose above a whisper. "The blood moon. It should not appear for another year." Lycan's expression hardened. Darius isn't waiting for fate. He's forcing it. Another blast of icy wind rolled across the mountains. The temperature dropped so quickly that frost spread over the stone beneath our feet. The enemy army paused. Even Darius's own soldiers looked uneasy. Whatever he was doing, it frightened everyone. Lycan placed himself in front of me once more. "Mira, take Aria into the palace." "What about you?" "I'll hold the valley." "I'm not leaving you." "You have to." His voice remained calm, but there was urgency beneath it. "If Darius reaches her, everything your parents died protecting will be lost." Mira grabbed my hand. "We have to move." I looked back toward the battlefield. Kael was still fighting beside Captain Ronan. He had blood running down his arm, but he refused to retreat. Shadow Ridge warriors and Lycan guards now fought shoulder to shoulder. Only an hour earlier, they had been prepared to fight each other. Now, they shared the same enemy. As Mira pulled me toward the palace gates, a sharp pain spread through my stomach. I stopped walking. "Aria?" I took a slow breath. "I'm all right." Another pain followed. Stronger this time. Lycan turned immediately. "What happened?" "The baby." Before I could finish, a pulse of silver light burst from my body. It spread across the valley in every direction. Every weapon touched by the light began to glow. The wind suddenly stopped. The unnatural darkness hesitated. Even the black clouds overhead seemed to falter. Master Orion stared in disbelief. "The royal blessing. It has awakened." Darius's calm expression finally cracked. "So, it truly exists." His voice carried excitement instead of fear. I've waited decades for this. He raised both hands. Bring her to me. Hundreds of enemy soldiers charged again. Lycan didn't wait. He leaped forward with impossible speed. His sword flashed through the crowd like silver lightning. Mira drew twin blades and stood beside me. We're not letting them through. Royal guards formed a living wall around us. Arrows filled the air. Shields rang with every impact. The palace gates stood only a short distance away, yet reaching them suddenly felt impossible. Kael forced his way through the battle. His breathing had become ragged. His shoulder burned where he had been wounded. Captain Ronan blocked another strike. Alpha, we need to fall back. Kael shook his head. Not without Aria. He caught sight of me through the chaos. 3 masked warriors had broken through the defensive line. They were heading straight toward me. Without thinking,
Kael ran.
he threw himself between us just as the first attacker swung his blade. Steel clashed. The force drove Kael to one knee. Another enemy came from behind. Before the blade could land, Captain Ronan intercepted it. We've got your back. More Shadow Ridge warriors joined them. No one questioned the order. No one hesitated. They fought beside the Lycans as though they had always been allies. Lycan glanced toward Kael. For the first time, he gave the Alpha a small nod. A silent acknowledgement. Kael returned it before throwing himself back into the fight. Far above them all, Darius watched impatiently. This is taking too long. He removed the ancient medallion once more. Its surface glowed with a crimson light. Master Orion saw it. His face drained of color. Lycan, the medallion. Lycan looked up. Too late. Darius drove the medallion into the rocky ground beneath his feet. A deafening crack echoed across the mountains. The earth shook violently. Huge sections of the cliff collapsed. Boulders tumbled toward the valley. Soldiers from both armies scattered. Some weren't fast enough. The battlefield dissolved into dust and chaos. One enormous rock broke loose above me. Mira looked up. Aria, there wasn't enough time. The boulder crashed downward. Then, someone shoved me aside.
Kael.
The stone slammed into the ground where I had been standing. Fragments exploded in every direction. When the dust settled, Kael lay trapped beneath a massive slab of rock. His legs were pinned. Blood ran from a cut across his forehead. I crawled toward him. Kael. He looked up at me through the dust. His breathing was strained. Are you hurt? The question stunned me. He wasn't asking about himself. Only me. I'm fine. He closed his eyes briefly.
Good.
Several guards rushed forward. They pushed against the rock. It barely moved. Lycan joined them. Even with his strength, the stone refused to shift. Darius laughed from the cliff. The mighty Alpha. What a disappointing end. Kael ignored him. Instead, he looked at me. I need you to hear me. This isn't the time. It might be my only chance. His voice trembled. I loved you. I never stopped. I was too blind to see who was poisoning my mind. Tears filled my eyes. You should have trusted me. I know. I'm sorry. The words came without excuses, without blame, only regret. I can't change what I did. But if I leave this world today, I need you to know. I would trade everything. My title, my power, my life, for one more day with the woman I failed. Silence surrounded us. Even the battle seemed distant. I looked into his eyes. I don't hate you. Relief washed across his face. But I can't go back to who I was. He nodded slowly. I wouldn't ask you to. A faint smile appeared despite the pain. You've become stronger than I ever deserved. Before either of us could speak again, the silver light returned. This time it wasn't gentle. It erupted from my body like a rising tide. The ground beneath my feet glowed with ancient symbols. The same symbols carved into the palace walls. The same symbols engraved on Lycan's sword. Master Orion fell to one knee. The throne. It has chosen. Every Lycan present lowered their heads. One by one. Across the battlefield. The royal guards. The commanders. The citizens watching from the walls. They all knelt, not because anyone ordered them, because the ancient bond recognized its rightful queen. I felt warmth spread through every part of me. The fear that had followed me since my exile disappeared. For the first time in my life, I knew exactly who I was. I wasn't the rejected Luna. I wasn't the abandoned mate. I was Aria Asterion, the last daughter of a fallen kingdom, its future queen. High above us, Darius's smile faded completely. His plan had failed. The royal bloodline had awakened before he could control it. He slowly drew a long black sword. If the throne won't kneel, he pointed the blade toward me, then the queen will fall. He leaped from the cliff. As he descended toward the battlefield, Lycan raised his sword. Kael struggled beneath the stone. Mira stepped into a fighting stance. Every warrior turned toward the same enemy. The final battle had begun. Darius struck the ground with enough force to crack the stone beneath his feet. Dust exploded into the air. The shockwave sent nearby warriors stumbling backward. When the cloud settled, he stood alone in the center of the valley, his black sword resting loosely at his side. His eyes never left me. So, this is the queen they waited for. Lycan stepped forward. You'll go no farther. Darius smiled faintly. You've said that before. In the next instant, both men moved. Their swords collided with a sound that echoed through the mountains. Neither gave an inch. Lycan attacked again, forcing Darius backward. The clash was unlike anything I had ever seen. Every strike was precise. Every movement carried years of experience. Around them, the battle continued. Shadow Ridge warriors fought beside the Lycans. Captain Ronan rallied anyone still standing. Hold the line. We protect the queen. No one questioned the order. Not anymore. I hurried toward the slab trapping Kael. Several guards strained against the stone. It won't move, one of them gasped. I knelt beside Kael. Stay with me. He managed a tired smile. I've been trying. Blood stained his shirt. His breathing had become shallow. Master Orion arrived beside us. He needs treatment immediately. We can't free him. The old healer looked at me. You can. I frowned. I don't understand. The blessing chose you. It answers your heart. I've never used it. You don't command it. You trust it. His words sounded impossible, yet something inside me stirred. The same warmth I had felt moments earlier. I placed both hands on the stone, closed my eyes, and thought of only one thing. Not revenge. Not power. Life. The silver light returned. It spread through my hands and into the cracked boulder. A deep rumble rolled beneath us. Slowly, the enormous slab lifted. Not by human strength, by the ancient power flowing through me. The guards quickly pulled Kael free before the stone settled back onto the earth. Everyone nearby stared in stunned silence. Kael looked at me with disbelief. You. I offered him my hand. He accepted it. Not because he was my alpha, because he needed help. When he stood, he winced from the pain. But he was alive. Across the battlefield, Lycan and Darius continued their duel. For every strike Lycan landed, Darius answered with another. Neither man gained the advantage. Then Darius suddenly stepped away. He smiled. You've grown slower. Lycan lowered his sword slightly. I've grown wiser. Darius laughed. Wisdom doesn't win wars. He whistled sharply. Hidden soldiers emerged from the surrounding cliffs. Not dozens. Hundreds. They had been waiting all along. Captain Ronan cursed under his breath. They were keeping a second army hidden. Master Orion's face tightened. This was never about one battle. Darius spread his arms. I didn't come for victory. I came for certainty. He looked directly at me. If I cannot control the royal bloodline, I'll erase it forever. The hidden army charged. Our exhausted warriors braced themselves. I looked around at the people risking their lives for me. Lila stood among the healers, refusing to leave the wounded. Mira protected children being escorted into the palace. Lycan continued to hold the center alone. Kael struggled to stand despite his injuries. Every one of them had chosen courage. It was my turn. I stepped forward. Lycan glanced back. Aria. Stay behind us. I shook my head. They're not fighting because of me. They're fighting for me. I won't hide. The warmth inside me grew stronger. The silver markings beneath my feet spread outward across the valley. Every Lycan warrior lifted their head. Every member of the royal guard straightened. A calm voice filled my mind. It wasn't loud. It wasn't frightening. It was gentle. The same voice that had comforted me in dreams since childhood. Lead with compassion. Fight without hatred. My mother's words from the journal echoed beside it. Forgive when you can. Fight when you must. I opened my eyes. The fear was gone. I raised one hand. Silver light swept across the battlefield like moonlight flowing over water. Every injured ally touched by it felt strength return.
Cuts closed.
Bruises faded. Exhausted warriors stood once more. Even Kael's breathing steadied. Master Orion watched in amazement. The blessing heals. Lucian smiled. It always belonged to a protector. Darius's expression darkened.
No.
This isn't possible. He rushed toward me, with his sword raised. Before Lucian could intercept him, Kael stepped between us. Steel crashed against steel. Kael staggered, but held his ground. You'll never reach her. Darius sneered. You still think you're worthy to protect her? No. Kael answered honestly. I think she is worthy to be protected. Those simple words carried more weight than any speech. Lucian joined the fight. Together, he and Kael forced Darius backward. One fought with centuries of discipline. The other fought with everything left in his heart. Finally, Darius made one mistake. Only one. He focused on Kael. Lucian struck the black sword from his hand. The weapon spun across the valley. Darius reached for another dagger. I stepped forward. No more. The silver light surrounded him. Not violently.
Firmly.
Like chains woven from moonlight. He struggled. The light only tightened. It cannot end like this, he shouted. It already has, I replied. You spent your life chasing power. You forgot the people beneath it. The light closed around him. His strength faded. The medallion slipped from his hand and shattered against the rocks. The black clouds above broke apart. Sunlight poured across the valley. The blood moon vanished. The war was over. 3 days later, the kingdom gathered inside the great courtyard. Flowers covered the palace steps. Children laughed freely again. The wounded had begun to recover. Master Orion placed the ancient silver crown upon my head, by the will of those who came before, and the hope of those yet to come. I present Queen Aria Asterion. The courtyard erupted in cheers. I looked across the crowd. Lucian smiled proudly. Mira wiped away tears. Lila clapped with excitement. Captain Ronan bowed deeply. Then my eyes found Kael. His arm rested in a sling. The proud Alpha, who had once stood above everyone, now walked slowly toward the throne. The entire courtyard became silent.
He stopped several steps before me.
Without hesitation, he lowered himself onto one knee. He bowed his head. I cannot erase the pain I caused. I cannot ask for the place I threw away. But before my people, before your kingdom, and before the moon that witnessed my greatest failure, I ask your forgiveness. No one spoke. Every eye remained fixed on us. I stepped down from the throne. I stopped before him. Then I gently touched his shoulder. Stand. He looked up. I offered him a small, peaceful smile. I forgive you. But forgiveness is not the same as returning to the past. A shadow of sadness crossed his face. Then he nodded. I understand. I'll spend the rest of my life becoming someone worthy of that forgiveness. You already took the first step.
He stood.
Not as the center of my future, but as a man finally willing to face the truth. Months later, the first snow of winter covered the palace gardens. A baby's cry echoed through the royal nursery. Lucian stood outside the door, smiling. Mira laughed as Lila hurried down the hallway with fresh blankets. Master Orion emerged from the room with tears in his eyes. A healthy son. The future is safe. I held my child close. His tiny fingers wrapped around mine. For the first time in many years, the kingdom knew peace. I looked out the window toward the mountains where my journey had begun, the place where I had once believed my life was over. Instead, it had only just begun. As the celebration continued below, far beyond the northern mountains, an old woman in a dark cloak closed an ancient book and smiled. The heir has been born. She looked toward the horizon. But his story is only the beginning. If you enjoyed this Alpha and Luna romance story, don't keep it to yourself. Subscribe to the channel and become part of our Alpha and Luna romance family. Like this video if you believed Aria deserved her destiny. Comment below. Would you have forgiven Kael after everything he did? I'd love to hear your thoughts. Share this story with your friends and fellow werewolf romance lovers so they can experience Aria's unforgettable journey too. And remember, every ending hides the beginning of another legend. See you in the next Alpha and Luna romance story.